Okay, we're on top of Chaf and Aleph. Just a little bit of rewinding. 20A on the 20A, and we are on the third line, Abai Amar. Just a little bit of rewinding. So where are we holding? We're talking about a shaver, a receipt. Okay, what's the rule of a receipt? So a husband owes a wife a ksuba. He pays her the ksuba. She writes him a receipt. Now, this is really ignoring the fact that there might be better, in general. Today we go to the shopping store, the grocery store, everyone prints out a receipt, right? And you're expected to submit it by email to get reimbursements. And I'm sure everyone on the board of the shul knows that I probably get the most checks from the shul. And from my yacht and from a bunch of other places I go shopping for. But so receipt today, like everybody has receipts, everyone submits them on email. In the time of the Talmud, receipt was a liability. Nobody wanted to carry receipts because effectively what a receipt says is keep the receipt or lose the ability, or you'll have to pay again. And at times of Chazal, apparently the rats eat the receipt again. I grew up in New York City. My days when I grew up in New York City, there weren't that many rats. Apparently, the population of rats wasn't like one rat for every 2 New Yorkers. Those days, it was like 1 rat for every 15 New Yorkers. So I'm not so familiar with it, but apparently, if you live in New York City today, you'll be very familiar with rats, and they eat through everything. So they'll eat through your receipt too. Gemara says, "Tzarich lishmar es shovrei me'achbarim." He has to protect his receipt from rats. So in general, in Talmud does not prefer receipts. Receipts are typically a last resort. You don't want a receipt. The typical way to do it is get rid of the document where you owe the money. In the case of ksuba, either add to the ksuba by voiding it. So basically, you write. We'll learn about it in a moment. What you can do is you can add to the bottom of the ksuba. You can say this was paid. Well, now the ksuba is worthless. And remember, a document with an erasure, it's like a check with an erasure. It doesn't work. Not going to be used. Or the other way to do it, that's if you want to keep the original. The other way to do it is just destroy the original. Doesn't always work. Not every place writes a ksuba, etc., etc. Okay, we're not going to go into that. That's really sugging ksubas. We discussed it when we're going to ksubas. Okay, now, so the Gemara wants to know: you find your receipt on the floor. So if the woman admits, then in other words, the woman admits to her husband paid the ksuba, so it goes back to her husband. The Gemara considers the possibility that maybe there's a kanunya here. Kanunya is corruption. A corruption. What's the corruption? The husband divorced her in Nisan. The receipt was written in Nisan, but he didn't actually. Well, let's say probably better is we don't even know. Yeah, he divorced her in Nisan. The receipt was written in Nisan, but he didn't pay it until Tishrei. Between Nisan and Tishrei, she sold the rights to her ksuba, to collect her ksuba to somebody else, and effectively, she gets the premium. So effectively, the right to get the ksuba is sort of a bet. In this case, it might be actually the right to collect it. So you might get a little bit more of a premium. And she's sort of going to split the premium with her husband, and she'll avoid the buyer won't get anything, because she's effectively the receipt is dated in Nisan, which means she could never have sold the ksuba. So the buyer loses out. The buyer was sold bag of ear. Okay, so that was the question. So the Gemara pointed out the first thing is that this option would be considered legitimate. Why? Because we said what is it? That's the first 2 lines on Chaf Medal 20a. Basically, if I borrow money from Steve and I sell the debt to Jules, I can forgive Steve from paying me, and Jules, you lose the money, you lose the debt. So because the woman has this theoretical ability to anyway cause the buyer a loss, and the buyer knows that, therefore. It can't any corruption here. It could be there is corruption, but it constitutes a legitimate form of activity. In other words, the result that happens, the buyer gets nothing, is legitimate, because there's another way for the buyer to get nothing. She can forgive the loan. and the buyer also gets nothing. That's just the rule. That's the reality. Okay. Abaya says, I feel tema less Shmuel. It could be we disagree with the concept of Shmuel, meaning the woman does not have the ability to forgive the loan. Not just the woman, what is it? Any lender a lender does not have, the lender who sells the debt does not have the ability to forgive the loan. However, we can be referring to a scenario which is stark suba yotzim tachas yada. The scenario is where she has the ksuba. Okay, she has the ksuba. The receipt is lost, and he has the receipt. So, you can't collect the ksuba anyway because she has the document. Why does she have the document? Clearly, because the ksuba was paid. 1 second. Hold on a second. 1 second. No. I'm sorry. No. It's unpaid. 1 second. No, because if she sold the ksuba, again, she would always have the ksuba. If she sold the ksuba, if she sold it to somebody else, she would give over the document. The fact that she still has it indicates it wasn't sold to somebody else, to a third party. Okay, Rava says, Rava says that's not good enough because we're concerned there might be two different documents, two ksuba documents, one that she has, one that the buyer has. Rabbi says, we're not concerned with such a possibility. Okay, so here we go back to Abaya's sheet that we've seen 2 or 3 times the past couple of days, where Abaya says that a document is sort of effectuated the date that it's written. So the receipt is in effect from the date it was written in Nisan, and therefore the sale was never legitimate in the first place. Returning the document is not going to make a difference. The sale never happened because the receipt is valid from the day that it was written. Okay. Says the Mishnah, Motza Igeres Shum. These are evaluation documents, Igeres Mazon, or documents that require a person to pay for child support or his wife or support his wife. Again, this is obviously a person who wasn't paying it willingly. That's why there was a need to write up such documents. Shtar Chalitza, a document that the court writes a document verifying that they witnessed a Chalitza performance. Or mi'unim. What is mi'un? Mi'un takes us back to Yivamis and Ksubas. What is mi'un? Mi'un is a rabbinical kedushin. That's when a girl that does not have a father, her mother marries her off before she's mature. And the law is once she becomes mature, she can reject the marriage and she can leave the marriage without a divorce. That type of exit is called mi'un, and a document is written to verify called a shtar mi'un. Okay, a shtari birurin. What is a shtari birurin? We'll have to explain what that is. The kol ma'aseh bezdin or any other court-related order, harei yachzer, you return it. Motza b'chafisa abedulus gama. We'll see exactly what these are. The different types of vessels. Or you find tachrich shashtaris. You find a bundle of documents. Ayagudah shashtaris. Or another type of bundle. We'll have to see soon what the difference is. Tachrich means korach. It's rolled together. Aguda is a bundle. It's more like tied together, right? You have a bundle of produce, or you have a rolled up paper, a bunch of papers that are rolled together. Harei yachzer, you return it. The Kamma aguda shtaris. How much is a bundle of documents? Shloshik shurin zebezeh. 3 tied one to another. We'll explain this at length. Here we have another very interesting one. Okay, so you have a bundle of documents, or then you have a pile of documents. They're not tied together, and each one says Reuven borrows money from Shimon, Reuven borrows money from Yisachar, Reuven borrows money from Yosef. Okay, so echad aleiva mishleisha. So presumably, who does it belong to?
Each of the 3.
Well, you find 3 documents together in a pile under a rock, and all documents are about Reuven borrowing money from 3 different people. So one of them is, like I said, Reuven, Yisachar, and Binyamin.
Each of the 3 people would want that.
Well, each of the three borrowers would like to have a document, no question. But why is it that they're all found together?
Because they've been paid.
What? Very good. They've been paid. They belong to the lender, the lender's document. So that's what he says. So then what do? Yachzil l'loiva. Now here we are. Shloisha halovin min ha'echad. Okay, so now you have the opposite. You have three documents that are found. It says Reuven is the lender to Yehudah, to Yisachar, and to Asher. So whose documents do these presumably belong to? Reuven loans money to Yehudah, Yisachar, and Binyamin.
And they're all together.
They're all together.
Three documents in one pile.
So again, it's a lender.
Again, you said-
Presumably it belongs here to the lender. Previously the borrower had a document that it said he borrowed money from three different people. Now the lender has a document, he loaned money to three different documents, three different loans. Presumably it belongs to the lenders, and the Mishnah says, Yachzil l'malva, you give it back to the lender. Motzah shtar bein shtarosav, any day mativai. A guy finds a document, he doesn't know what it's for. Okay. In other words, he was given a document to watch, and he doesn't remember who gave it to him. It's a major problem. Right? What do? Don't return it. You let it sit until Yo comes and tells you who to give. What is a symphon? Symphon is an invalidating feature. What does that mean? How do you invalidate a document, a loan, with a receipt?
Oh.
So a receipt, we would say, is the symphon of a shtar. Symphon is a Talmudical term. But there are other, for example, let's say a woman marries a guy who's truly crazy. You might want to say that craziness is a symphon that undermines the validity of the kedushin. You follow? If a guy buys a slave, it turns out the slave is a mafioso or something. You know, he's an assassin. What do they call it? A hitman or something. That would invalidate the sale. So that would be called a symphon of an eved, of a slave. Okay, so if you find a symphon, a receipt, you presume that the receipt is valid. See. Okay, let's see the Gemara. My shtar berurah. What does a shtar berurah mean? Some say it refers to documents that detail arguments in front of the court, like a court record. Yomi says zeber le'echad v'zeber le'echad. This is the process of appointing a mini court. How is that done? Both members of the case, both sides of the case, each appoint one judge, and that document to appoint their judge is called a shtar berurah. The way it works is that, let's say there's a borrower and a lender. The borrower chooses a judge, the lender chooses a judge, and both judges choose the third judge. The kol ma'aseh bezdin harei yachzer. Any act of court, it has to be returned. Says the Gemara. We saw this Gemara before. You have a divorce that was found in the court of Rav Huna. It said that it was given in Shviri, town called Shviri, which was on the river of Rochas. Like you pointed out, every get has a river on it. Rav Huna says, we're concerned that there might be two towns, both whose name is Shviri, and that somebody in each town would have an identical name. So in other words, we can't return this document because we don't know who it belongs to. Even though in the local town of Shviri, we know there's only one Yosef and Shimon. There aren't two of these people. But in the other, maybe there's another Shviri which also has a person named Yosef and Shimon, who's divorcing a wife with the same name as well. So Amar Rav Chizda l'Rabba, so Rav Chizda says to Rabba, Puk ayin. Go look out. Because tomorrow Rav Huna is going to ask you a question. Ask you this question. So he went out and found the Tanan Kamma Yachzer. So he argued that because it's an act of court, a document of the court, therefore you return the document. You're not concerned of two Yosef and Shimons in some new town whose name is Shviri, which we're unaware of. How do you so the typical when the Mishnah talks about Ma'aseh Bezdin, it talks about financial documents affecting finances. Where do you see that it refers to even documents that pertain to Isser, meaning the fact that this woman is now permitted or forbidden to marry somebody else? So Amar Lei, so he says to him, Tirda. Tirda is a very derogatory comment. It literally means he's crazy. You're crazy, retarded, maybe worse. Yeah. Shtar chalitza miyun. The Mishnah specifically mentions documents of chalitza and miyun. Those clearly pertain to marriage. Okay. Paga araz de beirav. A tree was that was sort of standing next to the study hall. It's apparently the study hall was built, leaning on the tree, broke. The tree broke. So Mara Dipaga. One guy, the guy who was called a derogatory name, he said it was broken because you called me a derogatory name. The tree was standing up for my honor. And the other guy says, because you were such an idiot, that's where the tree broke. To stand up for my honor. Next, he found the document in a chafisa or in a deluskama. What are these things? My chafisa. What is a chafisa? So Rabbi Barchana chemes katana. It's a small jug. My deluskama. Rabbi Bar Shmuel. A deluskama is tlike desavi. 1 second. It appears to be some sort of basket that the elderly people used to hold their stuff. Okay, tachrach shtaris, aguda shtaris. Tachrach, who said, is rolled up. Aguda is stacked together. Tanar Rabbanan, Kamma hu tachrach shtaris. How many documents are rolled up? Shlosh shkruchen zebazeh. 3 that are rolled together. V'kamma hi aguda. Shtaris, how much is a bundle of documents? Shloisha kshurin zebazeh, it's 3 that are tied one to another. Shmat mina, we see from here, kesher siman. Then a knot is a siman. Okay, 1 second. The Gemara is questioning why the fact that 3 documents are tied together, why does that constitute a siman? Why are you returning? So you lose 3 documents are lost, they're tied together, you return them. Why do you return them? Presumably because the way they were tied is unique. And when the let's say in this case, let's say it's the lender that identifies the documents as his own, identifies that the way it was knotted, that's sufficient grounds to identify that he is the owner of the documents. So clearly, then the way it's tied, it would be a siman, would be an identifying feature. So the Gemara says, no, so the Gemara says not necessarily. Rav Chia explains that the bundle is also rolled together. We spoke about documents that are rolled together, and now we're saying the bundle and a bundle of documents. Now we're saying the bundle was also rolled together. So hold on to your question because we're about to ask it. So the Gemara says, well, isn't that the same? We already discussed rolled documents. We call that a tachrach. Tachrach means rolled. Aguda is a bundle. Now we're saying that the bundle was rolled. Well, the bundle is a tachrach. What's the difference between an aguda and a tachrach? So the Gemara says, tachrach kol chad v'chad b'roish shedechavre. Aguda de ramo adodi ukruches. Okay, basically, let's explain here. A tachrach is where you have what they're sort of rolled, but one following another. So 3 papers here. You have one document, and then you begin the next document, and you sort of rolled it all together one after another. Kruchen is where you stacked all 3 documents together and you roll them into one thing. Okay, and again, the point here is the way it was rolled might be a siman. Maybe the order of the documents, something like that. Okay, 1 second. Okay, my machra is how do you announce this lost object? By the way, we're talking about lost objects. We'll get to it, maybe even today. Talking about lost objects, the next parak. 1 second. So the Gemara says, my machras, what do you announce? The Gemara says, minyan, the number of documents. So the Gemara says, "Ma'yer tilsa, why 3? I feel a train ami." Why? 1 second. So okay, so 1 second. So the Gemara says, okay, if the simon here is the way it was rolled, and you're announcing that there were 3 documents found, why don't you announce that there were? Why doesn't the same rule apply even when 2 documents are found? So the Gemara says, Ravina says the guy announces he finds money. We'll get to Ravina in the next parak. And again, what does it mean? So somebody announces, somebody puts up a sign in Ketzer, I found money in the backyard. Now, what would one way to identify the money be? You know, it was $47.36, right? And there was stacked. There were three tens and 2 5s and four singles and etc. And you know, 3 dimes and a nickel and a penny. So same here. So the Gemara is saying a guy announces, I found documents. 2 documents is not a sign. It's like saying I found a 20 outside. Everyone loses a 20. But if it's a more customizable number, 3 documents or more, that would already be something unique. The number itself would be significant. That would be considered a sign, and then we would know it's yours, and we would return it. So over here also, shtori makros, you say you found documents, and then it's up to the loser to identify how many, and that potentially is one of the ways to identify it. So we have Rav Shimon Gamliel, right? You have 3. A guy finds documents, 3 documents, all with the same lender, or 3 documents, all with the same borrower. You presume in the first case it's the lender, and in the second case it's the borrower. So the Gemara says the Malvin inu. Okay, so you have 3 documents, all from the same lender. The Gemara says if it belonged to the borrower, my bo gabi hadadi. Why did 3 different borrowers? How did their documents all end up in the same hands? Yeah.
The lender lended all those people.
So if it belongs to the lender, I understand.
Right.
But how would it be possible that it belongs to the borrower? In other words, we try to understand, like, why do you give it back to the lender? Because it makes no sense that it should belong to the borrowers. How did 3 random people somehow put three documents together? What justification could they give? Well, the Gemara says maybe there are justifications. So Gemara says, maybe they wanted to verify them all together. So Gemara says you're right, the Mekaimi, but they were already all verified. So they're already verified. So now why do they belong together if they belong to the borrowers? Clearly they don't belong to the borrowers, which is the point of Rav Shimon Gamliel. So Gemara says, well, maybe there's another justification. Maybe it fell from the hands of the scribe. So Gemara says that can't be. This would make sense if they weren't verified yet. Maybe they were written and still in the hands of the scribe, and the scribe lost the documents. But over here they were verified. Why is a verified document in the hands of a scribe? Verified document means not only was it loaned, but it was also brought in front of court for verification. So if it's verified and it got back to the scribe, it makes no sense. Now we go to the other scenario. 1 second here. We have 3 different borrowers and 1 lender. Okay, so 3 different documents, all from the same lender, but the people are 3 different borrowers. So clearly, in this case, it belongs to the lender, because there's only 1 lender. So Gemara says, "Why do you decide that the love in it? Because if it belongs to the borrowers, by Bogai Hadadi, how did it happen that all 3 documents should meet each other?" So Gemara says, "Dilma lemechtavinu Asli." 1 second. Maybe they were all being written by the same scribe. The Gemara says, well, no, well, no, we're talking about a scenario where they were written by 3 different scribes. The Gemara says, maybe they all decided to verify them together. So the Gemara says, well, it's not the responsibility of the borrowers to verify a document. Who uses a document to collect? The lender. So who's responsible to verify it? The lender. Asli Malvin Mekayim. Asli, Gemara says Malvin Mekayim Shtori. Loiva Le Mekayim Shtori. It's the borrower's responsibility. The lender's responsibility to verify the document, not the borrower. So there would be no justification for 3 borrowers to have the same document together if they were written by 3 different scribes. If they were written by one scribe, so maybe we say maybe the scribe lost it. But if they were written by 3 different scribes, it would never be justification for the documents to be together, unless it happened that they all belong to the lender, which is exactly the opinion of Rav Shimon ben Gamliel. Okay, now we got to the symphonis. Symphon. You consider the receipt to be valid. Okay, so now we'll sort of take this apart. The Gemara is going to give an interesting opinion, and then we will deal, I believe, to the end of the parak with this opinion. Okay, so in this case, the lender finds a receipt in his property. He doesn't remember if the loan is paid up, but he finds a receipt amongst his documents. Maybe it's not the lender, maybe it's the lender's kids, right? So the lender dies. The kids are going through the father's documents. They find a loan document, and attached to it, they find a receipt. Okay, so what's the story? Even though the borrower wrote it the lender wrote it with his own hand, it's a joke and it's not valid. In other words, if the receipt shouldn't be in the lender's property, it should be in the borrower's property, right? The borrower needs the evidence, a receipt from that the lender received the money. If the lender has the receipt, who cares? He wrote it in anticipation that he may get paid back, but he wasn't actually paid back. Yeah? Okay, 1 second. Not only if it was written in his own head, if it was written by a scribe, well, then you say that he found a scribe, so he thought it was a good opportunity. The reason why he wants a receipt is because let's say the guy pays him. Then he's going to ask for a receipt, and he wants to have a receipt readily available so that the guy can't offer payment you didn't have a receipt ready, forget it, I'll pay you a different time. So he always wants to have a receipt at the ready. So a scribe, you'd think that, well, he sees a scribe, he doesn't always have access to a scribe, so he wants the scribe to prepare a receipt. That would make sense. Even if it was written in his own hand, you'd think he could write it out on the spot. Puzzle, it's still not valid. Why? He might come Friday afternoon to pay me back the money, and I'm not going to have a time before Shabbos to write out a receipt. So therefore, the guy's going to come late Friday afternoon to pay me back. I'm not going to have a receipt ready. He won't pay me. So what am I going to do? I'm going to prepare a receipt in anticipation of him doing this shtick. And when he comes to pay me, I'll have a receipt and I'll be able to get paid. Okay. Tanan. Go back to the Mishnah. The symphon of a document, we said, is a receipt. Again, we said symphon does not mean a receipt. Symphon means an invalidating feature. The way to invalidate a document, a loan document in this context, is a receipt. So symphon in this context means a receipt. Okay, so if you find a receipt, you consider the receipt to be valid. 1 second. As a straight contradiction. We just started off the Gemara saying that a symphon that's found, a receipt that's found in the hands of the lender is a joke. It's a joke. It's not valid. And now what are we saying? That a symphon that's found in the hands of a lender is taken seriously. Do what the receipt says. Well, why? Seems to be a straight contradiction. Do you consider a receipt in the hands of the lender valid or not valid?
But then he could give it to him.
So that was the previous Gemara. The previous Gemara is saying it's a joke because it was never given. But now the Gemara is saying, well, you find the symphon. The Mishnah does not specify who found it. And the Mishnah says it's not to be taken as a joke. You have to listen to it. Why do you have to listen to it? Why don't you treat it as a joke? It's a straight contradiction. The Gemara began by proposing that every receipt in the hands of the borrower is a joke. In the hands of the lender is a joke. And now the Mishnah says, no, it's not a joke. It's to be taken seriously. Straight contradiction. So the Gemara says, okay, so the Mishnah here is referring to, 1 second, hold on. Okay, there's two versions here in Rashi. So yesterday, hold on. Okay, I'm going to go over the second version of Rashi. I'm not sure which one our school chooses, but the question, both versions are on the opposite of each other. Okay, according to the second version of Rashi, if the document was found sort of in the garbage pile. 1 second, hold on. Just make sure I have this right.
No. Guess this is one. Oh, 30.
Okay, yeah. So basically, we'll go to the second explanation in Rashi. What happened was if you found the receipt among the other ripped up documents, pile of invalid documents, then you presume that it's you presume that the receipt was actually given, and the borrower forgot it there, and therefore the document is valid. As meaning, if the receipt was found in the valuable document section, then you presume, well, it hasn't been given. That's why it's valuable, and therefore we consider it to be a joke, because if it hasn't been given, it's worthless. But if it's found in the shredder, right?
Mm-hmm.
If it's found in the shredder, so then what do we say? We presume that the reason why it wasn't given yet. The reason why it's in the shredder is because it was given.
Yeah.
It was given, and therefore the lender has no use for it anymore. Because he has no use, that's why he put it in the shredder. Okay, Toshma. Nimtza la'echad ben shtaraisav, shtar shel Yosef ben Shimon Perua. Okay, so what happens? A guy loaned, there are two people in town, both of them have the same name, Yosef, and he lent to both of them. And he finds in a receipt, it says in one of his documents that the document of Yosef and Shimon was paid. Shneim Perun, both, we don't know which Yosef and Shimon it was. So therefore we consider both loans to have to be repaid. Okay, over here again, we say this is a symphony, it's a receipt basically, and we take it seriously. Why do we take it seriously? So the Gemara says, we said, you found the receipt of Yosef and Shimon in the trash bin. If it's in the lender's trash bin, that means it's a valid document, because it means he must have been repaid. In which case, the receipt was given to the borrower who failed to pick it up, and therefore he moved it to the trash. Toshma. Okay, this is a case where inheritors collect from inheritors. So again, Reuven borrows from Shimon, Reuven dies, and Shimon dies. So Shimon, the lender's kids, are collecting from Reuven, the borrower's kids. So Shimon, the lender's kids, have to make the following oath. What's the oath? They make an oath that we are unaware that our father has any collateral or has ever collected from your father when he was alive, and that we looked through his documents, we never found any receipt. And therefore, because we make these oaths that we don't know that the document, in effect, what they're saying is we cannot verify that you paid back. And then Reuven's kids have to pay Shimon's kids. They have to pay back the loan. Now, one of the oaths here is they did not find among their father's documents that it was repaid. 1 second. But if it was repaid and it was found amongst their father's documents, we would say it's a joke, because we said that a receipt in the hands of a lender is not serious. So Gemara says no, same story. It was found among in the trash bin, meaning presumably they're basically saying that they didn't find in the trash bin of their father the receipt. Toshmash simfon sheyeshel of Edom yiskayim b'chaysamov. If you have a simfon, you have a receipt sheyeshel of Edom that has witnesses that signed to it. Yiskayim b'chaysamov, you verify it. Well, if you're verifying a receipt, then presumably you're considering the receipt to be valid, even if it was found in the hands of the lender. Why is that? If a receipt in the hands of the lender, we're saying, is not to be taken seriously, then why are you bothering to verify it? So the Gemara says, no, you don't verify the document. You look at the signatories and you ask them, you ask them to the witnesses, In other words, when you sign this document, did you sign this in anticipation that there might maybe need to repay, or did you actually witness a repayment? Because even if you find a receipt in the hands of the borrower, in the hands of the lender, I'm sorry, you still inquire to the lender, to the witnesses that signed it. Was this an actual payment? Did you actually witness the repayment, or did you just write in advance and then effectively it's useless? Toshma. Let's continue. Simfon sheyeshel of Edom kosher. A receipt that has witnesses is kosher. My Edom. What does Edom mean? Edikiyim. It was verified. Hachanami mistavra. This makes sense. Meaning Tony Sefer. She'enol of Edom posel. If it doesn't have witnesses, then it's invalid. My enol of Edom. Ilem delek Edom iluyaf means that there's no witnesses that sign the receipt. It's obvious to posel because you don't have the witnesses in the document. Elav, it must be edikiyim, meaning that if it's verified, then you can, if it's a verified document, then you can rely on it. If it's not verified, you can't rely on it. Okay, and the key point here is as follows: in order, like we said before, in order to verify a loan document, the borrower and lender must be present. In order to verify a receipt, the same is true. So a receipt that's coming for verification is clearly not a receipt that was found in the borrower's domain, in the lender's domain. In other words, a receipt that went for verification is clearly a valid receipt. So it's in a different category. We're talking about receipts here that never went for verification because they were receipts that were on file to be given. A receipt that went to verification obviously was given, and obviously that the reason for that was because it was paid. Therefore, if the document is verified, it serves as valid evidence, and we can determine from that the document that the receipt is valid.
Even if it's in the lender's stuff.
Yeah. So once the document is verified, that effectively is saying it was administered, it was given. The court would not verify a document that wasn't given. So even if it's currently in the domain of the lender, it doesn't make a difference. It means at some point it wasn't in his domain. Okay, and again, in order for a receipt to be verified, both the lender and the borrower would have to be present. Just like a loan document, which has the same requirements. Gufa, let's go back to the original statement. Simfon sheyeshel of Edom yiskayim b'chesamov. If there is a receipt with witnesses, you have to verify the document. Einol of Edom v'yotzim tachas deshlish. Let's say there are no witnesses, and the receipt is in the hands of a third party. Or even better, this is a receipt that I spoke about before. So this is, you have a loan document, and instead of destroying the loan document, you add to the bottom of the loan document the receipt. So it says, I owe you money, signed by two witnesses, and then you add on to the receipt, it says, and I paid you back, signed by two witnesses. Kosher, that's valid. If there's so here I borrowed money from Jules, right? So Jules, you wrote a receipt, and both of us trust Jared. So you gave the receipt to Jared sort of as an escrow. That means that you trust Jared, which means that if Jared says it was or wasn't paid back, we're gonna do what Jared says, because you've had the confidence to entrust the document to Jared, to a third party, basically. Okay. The same thing is true if the receipt was written at the bottom of the document. The guy has a loan document. He would never invalidate his own loan document by writing a receipt underneath it. Clearly, if he wrote a receipt underneath, then the loan was repaid. And sort of instead of destroying the document, they decided to undermine it by putting a receipt right underneath it. And that concludes the first paragraph. Okay, enjoy your morning.